Hey, Canteeners, welcome back to episode 60. 60, we're gonna change it up a little bit. We're gonna try to kind of stay away from politics, but may throw a little bit in here in there, here and there. Uh, we had planned on all three of us having a few drinky drinks while we did this, but I don't see anything Roger's doing right now. It looks like coffee he's drinking. Maybe it's got some Baileys or Sambuca in it. Josh is already throwing them back. Have a good old time. But yeah, earlier today I had some pain, so I took a painkiller, and I was like, after I took it, I was like, oh yeah, not a good idea to mix alcohol with painkillers. That's how Heath Ledger died. So, as Josh is drinking, we'll tell all our YouTube viewers out there so we don't get canceled. If you're going to drink, drink responsibly, and if you're underage, do not drink. Don't break the law. So there you go. We're good with YouTube. So let's give a shout out to Carlton Zeus first of all. Thanks for that intro music, Alpha Child, and we appreciate you letting us use that. It's a catchy tune, and if we have listeners out there that haven't gone and like listened to that on iTunes, head on over there and give it a listen, and give his other songs some listens too, because it's good stuff. And yeah, that's. I can't think of anybody I want to shout out. Maybe Chris for offering to buy our domain name for whatever price we ask, and he's going to resell it for a fair price. So, hey, Chris, thanks for that, and thanks for everybody for sharing. When Josh put the guilt trip on you, he was being mean, Josh, that day, and so thanks for sharing. It really does help out, and we do see a reflection on that because I think our listens on episode 59 kicked up really high. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and not necessarily because we get new listeners, but sometimes, you'll miss the Facebook post or you'll miss this on your timeline. You don't realize a new episode is out, but when it's shared, the algorithm on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere refreshes and it pops up on people's timeline. So we appreciate y'all sharing. Please keep it up, and I'll kick it to Josh for some shout outs.
Hey everybody, real quick, some shout outs. Hey, first off, I want to shout out Isaac down in Louisiana. Appreciate you checking us out. Chatted last night. Yeah, everybody, you can go check out Isaac's podcast. He is the Cajun Conservative. You can find him on all the podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, everything. Just a fantastic guy, and he's true Louisiana. He's south of I-10, Louisiana. So Leaf, don't worry. He's one of you. You guys are probably related somehow. I'm pretty sure everybody. Oh, no, man. Hey, we're looking forward to hopefully having Isaac on pretty soon. Hey, Don down in Atlanta. Hey, appreciate you listening, Don. Appreciate the support, and Camille down in Atlanta. We really appreciate you listening. I mean, granted, your family and you're kind of obligated to, but as Luke always says, the first people that always let you down are friends and family. They're always the first, man. It's always the strangers that support you. So, hey, he's spot on. It's always the friends and family that let you down. So, those are my shout outs this week. Yeah, but hey, to echo Luke, hey, Chris, we'll give you a hell of a deal on the domain name, man. A hell of a deal. So, I'm gonna throw it over to Roger for Roger.
Hey, if you bought $10,000 worth of Apple, 20 years ago or whatever went public, you'd be a rich man, and that's maybe the angle Chris is taking.
Maybe.
Hey, I'm not hating on him. I'm not hating on him. Well, I want to give a shout out to my wife because I think for the first time I actually got her to like one of our posts. She didn't share it yet, but I got her to hit the like button. She was like, she actually sat next to me. We were sitting there and I'm playing Xbox. She's like, there. I'm like, what? She goes, you see, I just hit like. Like, hey, thanks for supporting your husband and his hobbies or whatever. But no, for real, it's there's I'm gonna throw it up on our Facebook page here. But we brought him up before. This guy Mike, who I used to serve with back in the day, he's out in Tullahoma, Tennessee, but he just started his small business, Pops Smoked Meats. And I would tell you this: I mean, nobody knows more about smoking meat than, well, maybe Josh does, but than Mike does. And from everything that I've heard and all the reviews and all the comments and all that stuff, I mean, the stuff is fantastic. And I was chatting with him earlier today, and I asked him, I was like, "Hey man, how's business going?" And he's literally like having to tie in his son to all this stuff. He's got a 15-year-old boy at home, and he's like, "Hey, I'm about to get him to help me out." And now they're looking at trying to do some like local deliveries or like overnight shipments and this and that. So I'll throw up his link if you're anywhere in the neighborhood. Definitely hit him up if you're looking for some food, that type of stuff. And I think his wife is getting ready to kick off a t-shirt company. I think they just invest in a lot of equipment and stuff like that. And we were doing a lot of plugs for small businesses, and I can't stress the importance of not just small businesses, but like these really home run small businesses, because as everybody was coming out of COVID and everybody's jobs are up in the air and this and that, except for Luke because he's a government employee. I can say that right. Yeah, that's right. So, but the rest of the folks, they're just trying to make it or just catch up, right, to where they were a year ago. So you've got a lot of folks that are sitting here just trying to think of, what can I do out of my home? What's my skill set that somebody will actually pay for? And it's, I tell you, I mean, at first it's intimidating, right? It's like, even with our podcast, you say, what do I have to say that people will actually listen to? Now Luke said, I mean, thanks to our support, where we might actually hit double digits on our last episode as far as listeners or whatever. But, even farther beyond your time, it's money. It's like, hey, what service do I have? What good do I have that people, where money's in limited supply, unless you're the Fed and it's unlimited, where they're going to use their hard-earned cash to spend on your good or service. And then not just once, but then come back. So, huge supporter of small businesses like that. But I'll share his page on there. And I talked to him earlier today, because we were talking about briskets and this and that. I said, yeah, I like to smoke a lot of food, but briskets I always struggle with. But I always have like shitty quality brisket because I just, I get whatever's at Safeway. I don't get like the butcher's cut or anything like that. So it's all wonky and uneven and whatever. So he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I had a buddy, teach me like 20 years ago, yada, yada, yada. But anyway, point to this is, I think we should do an episode coming up, maybe the next, several weeks, month, something like that, where, hey, let's bring him on here 10 or 15 minutes. He'll kind of give a down and dirty lesson on, how to trim the meat, how to prep it, how to smoke it. And, we'll throw it out there and see where it goes. So I think it might be some interested listeners.
That's a good idea. You could go ahead, Josh.
They ship in the, in the lower 40.
They're just starting to look at it now. I mean, the problem is he's got to go buy a commercial vacuum sealer. That just shows you how into quality this guy is. Because I'm like, dude, I bought mine for like $19.99 down at Walmart. You just shit in a Ziploc bag and call it a day. He's like, no. He's like, you got to do this stuff right. I'm like, all right. And then you got to look at overnighting it and that type of stuff. So, I mean, at that point, obviously costs go up. Yeah. I'm going to order 10 chicken wings and have it overnighted to, your house or something like that. But I mean, if you were to do something like a pork butt or shoulder, I mean, overnight, theoretically, man, you could still get it. You could get it. It could still be warm on the inside, right? If he gets it out in time and whatever. So I know they are looking at that, but I'll throw up their page on our Facebook page, and you guys and gals out there can check it out. My final shout out. So, and I think Josh may get into more of this later. And as Luke has mentioned, we're starting a website. We want to get off the Facebook platform. I don't know that we'll ever entirely get off the platform, because we do. It does provide an effective means to communication and interaction with our folks. But now we actually have our own Culper's Canteen Cup email. So you've seen it on our post, but it's the letter C3, the number 3 at culperscanteencup.com. So, staying away from a whole lot of politics, but if you guys and gals haven't heard of Lieutenant Colonel Rhodes, I think his first name's Andrew Rhodes. He's a battalion commander out at Fort Carson. And long story short, you can gurgle all this stuff, but he came out to his unit and reportedly stated, if you are a white male, you are part of the problem. Now, this is a battalion commander of an infantry battalion, if I'm not mistaken, came out and told all of his troops that. So I used our brand new, Culper's Canteen Cup email and hit up the PAO over at Fort Carson, and surprisingly, they responded within one day. So I do want to give a shout out to Amber. She's the public affairs specialist, PAO over at Fort Carson. So I basically asked it, hey, do you have any, comments or, what's the status of the thing? What's going on? How about, his actions or, these clearly aren't condoned or in accordance with Army values. What's the command's take on this? That type of stuff. So she replied, the command is aware of an event involving one of our battalion commanders. An event involving one of our battalion commanders. We are conducting a preliminary inquiry to gather more information. It would be inappropriate to provide any further details in order to protect the integrity of the inquiry. Now, I will tell you this, I definitely appreciate the response. And then I replied kindly. I was like, hey, totally understand. We look forward to the updates. And I think Josh went as 1/8th Infantry, 3rd BCT, 4th ID, Fighting Eagles. So I am actually pretty surprised because that story, like a lot of military specific stories, they don't linger in the news a whole lot because, considering the veteran population is a little bit smaller and those that follow those type of events is even smaller than that. So the stories, tend to hang around for a day or two and, they just kind of disappear or get washed under the carpet, or under the rug. But I would tell you, like this thing, I see at least one posting of it every day on a different site. It is not going away. And, Josh has had some posts recently, in reference to stuff like this, where this is not isolated. And that's the bigger part of the problem. It's not what this one dumbass went out there and said, okay? I've had plenty of dumbass commanders and warrant officers, say some pretty stupid things in their, one of them here, but throughout their careers. But, so I can live with the one-offs, but it's the, what Josh was pointing to was this is not an isolated incident. And then, he sent out a couple posts where I believe other active duty service members, right, were coming out to defend his comments. So that's the bigger, the bigger challenge there. But anyway, that's my shout out. I think we've kind of found a new tool now. Now we've got the C3, at Culper's Canteen Cup, because it kind of gives me something to hide behind. That way nobody doxes my shit or crap. Sorry. They don't come out and look for me. I could just, I sign everything, C3. So it's, and we actually sound pretty professional. So fortunately, Apple doesn't show our listeners or some or anything like that in case anybody goes to look. They're like, man, they've got like 8 listeners or whatever. But definitely look forward to some more emails out there. And I think Josh brought up some FOIA requests and stuff like that. So hopefully here in the next couple months, we have some new breaking news to to bring to our listeners. So Luke,
and that was it's one of those things where Roger sent us that he was going to hit up the PAO there at Fort Carson, and Josh and I probably had the same look on our face. We were like, why didn't I think of that? I mean, it's a really, really good idea. It's like, it's so obvious, we need to be doing more stuff like that. And I'll kind of dovetail, I know we've been talking about it a lot, but it's a real thing. I'll kind of dovetail that into the website, with one, kind of a little shout out attached to it with Jed. Jed was the first one to email our new address, and we like that. Thanks, Jed. And Jed has hit me up personally and, offered me some advice on the website. And for the rest of you, I mean, it's going to be a real thing. What we're hoping to do is have multiple sections in the website, but one of the main sections is going to be a news tab where we're going to have multiple tabs under there, latest breaking news, latest news, what's going on in the world, what's going on in the US, just that'll be automatically be populated. Then we'll have a section that, what do we call it? What do we call it, Josh? The canteen files, the canteen, what was it?
I forget what it was.
Yeah. But we'll have our little section.
Something like that.
We'll have our little section where we'll populate it with stories that we're looking at. And then we'll have an opinion piece, maybe a satire piece. But as we get into it, with Josh mentioned the FOIA request, it's a really good idea. We're learning something while we do that. I've never done one. And Roger reaching out to PAOs, we'll put together a short little, blurb on what we did there. So maybe you will hear it on or read it on Culper's Canteen Cup first. And we hope that will drive y'all to our news site. We'll make it something where we'll update it every day. We'll keep it updated, and maybe you can come to Culper's Canteen Cup to get your news. So that'll be fun. We'll see, and we're always open to suggestions. If there's something you'd want to see on there, let us know, and we'll definitely hit it up. We're pretty excited about it. We spent a good half hour or so talking about it before we started the show, and we'll get it up and running. But we appreciate all y'all, all the support from everyone. So, Josh, we We said this one was going to be a little bit different, so I think I'll give a review of what I'm drinking right now. I'm going by the outline. Josh did an outline for this. It's very detailed, so you know this show is not going to go off the rails. So as I said earlier, I'm not drinking alcohol tonight. I'm drinking Radinska bubbly water. It's mineral water from Slovenia, and it's very high in magnesium and some other mineral. So it keeps you a little bit too regular. I drink about 3 or 4 of these a day, and it's called water of life. They call this the water of life, and Putin loves Radinska. Vladimir Putin, when he came to Slovenia, one of the big things is he wanted to go to the mineral wells and drink Radinska and Donut water because it is water of life. So that's what I'm drinking tonight, and I do need to stay well hydrated because for our loyal listeners who were with us last year, you may remember how it became very warm in my basement studio, and it's getting there already. And I'm glowing, as Josh said last week. So, Josh, what are you drinking?
So, I am drinking Fiddler. It's from ASW. So, A is it's a distillery within Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm not from Georgia, but my parents lived there. After my dad retired and stuff, they moved to southern Georgia. So Fiddler is, like I said, it's out of the distillery in Atlanta, and it's fantastic. I try and support, like Roger was talking earlier, small businesses and stuff. It's not one of the, obviously ASW is not one of the big, it's not Wild Turkey or Buffalo Trace or anything, but they're down in Atlanta. They're doing great things. And so what they do is, obviously, so their bourbon has to be made in new charred oak barrels, and so but all of their oaks, they come from Georgia, and then they turn around and they put the finishing staves. So Maker's Mark is also doing this, experimenting with different staves to finish out their bourbons, and so ASW is doing the kind of the same thing. They use their 51% corn as congressional mandate for bourbon, but they're also using charred oak staves from Jackson County, Georgia, to finish out their bourbons. It's good. It's a little young. You can tell it's a little young, but at the end of the day, man, they're trying new things. They're not afraid to experiment around, and it's pretty solid. I think it's clocked in at about a 19 proof right now. So but it's a great sipper, man, and at the end of the day, you're supporting a small distillery, which I'm all about. Sorry, Mom. I'm gonna drink a little, so you're already. I can already feel the disappointment from that. So completely be narcissistic. And this. To get this thing kicked off. It's my birthday weekend. So I came home from work today, and there's balloons in the house and everything, and so my wife and kids, they would have walked in the door because growing up, it was always like you had a birthday. It was that day, and by that, you got to pick what you had for dinner that night, right? And even when your pick for dinner, it was, hey, it's like Sonny's barbecue or cheaper. You couldn't pick. It'd be like, oh, we're going out to some expensive steakhouse. There was none of that at all. It was like, hey, you get Sonny's barbecue or cheaper. You could pick. You want to go to McDonald's or Burger King for your birthday, So, I did not get introduced to the birthday week or like the birthday month until I got married, and my wife's like, no. My birthday is in December, so I get the entire month of December.
Hell yeah.
And you have to separate the birthday and Christmas. Those are not the same day. So, anyway, so I got surprised when I got home. So, I'm starting my birthday weekend, and so you know what, I don't know what I'm going to do this weekend. I can do whatever I want. It's gonna be pretty amazing. So I've started off with some bourbon, and I think I'm going to have a movie marathon tonight. um and I don't know which movie I'm going to watch. I've got a number of favorite movies. I got to find out what's on Netflix or Hulu. I think I love this movie as well, and Casablanca. It's one of the top five best movies ever made. I don't think you can argue that, and anybody doesn't have that in their top five. You probably at generally everything. I mean, it's fantastic.
Josh, the same people who don't have Casablanca in their top five probably put Transformers: Dark of the Moon at number 4. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you take a look. You take a look at that cast. What you have Humphrey Bogart as Rick. You've got Ingrid Bergman. You got Dooley Wilson as Sam, and the rest of the cast. I don't think you get better than that in this. It's and Rick's handed right. He's handed the Nazis their ass in that movie. It's fantastic. I don't even part of the movie is probably one of the best either.
It's totally okay. All due respect, and this is not why I like the movie, but it's such a He-Man woman hater movie. It really, really is. Because, I mean, although Ilsa wasn't the bad guy, I mean, her making the wrong choices drove the whole movie, and she screwed over both guys.
Yes,
yeah, she screwed over both guys, and it's like the choice she had to make was a bad choice at the end. It wasn't happy for her at all. Laszlo had to live for the rest of his life knowing that, his wife and Bogey, and Rick had done the thing in Paris, and then Bogart has to walk away from her because he's being the bigger man, and so is Laszlo. And Dude. It's like, oh man, wow, Ilsa, you're kind of a piece of garbage.
Dude, every time him and Elsa got it on, knew she was thinking about Rick. He knew it.
Yeah. Yeah, and dude, and movies were so classy back then, because the part, you remember the part where it's almost a lull in the movie where she and Rick, they're in the apartment and they have the embrace, they're in the apartment and they have the embrace, and then they cut away, and he's standing by the window having a cigarette, and she's like lounged over here with her dress so slightly lower than it was when they embraced. And it's like, that's so classy, dude, because you didn't have to show them having sex. And if you didn't want to think about that, you didn't have to. But if your mind went there, it did. Instead of like Game of Thrones, we're going to flash some boobs on the screen right now.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it was just a different time. It makes, that's one of the reasons I like it, Josh, is because it kind of takes you back, and, it makes me feel good every time I watch it.
Man, it's legit. What you talk about, one of the favorite quotes is, Rick comes up, at first, like, so time goes by, right? It's one of the songs that Sam cannot it's basically, it's foreboding to play, and and then Rick's, Sam starts playing. He's like, "What are you doing?" And then he looks up and he sees Ilsa there, and he's like, in all the towns of the world, she walks into mine. And it's just, there's so many good quotes out of that movie, and
we're totally ignored Roger, because you and I are just ping-ponging on Casablanca, and I'll kick it to him after I say this. But other than watch that tonight and observe for me, because I'm not sure. There's the flashback scenes, not including the flashback scenes. Okay. I challenge you to find me more than twice that Rick smiles. He smiles once when he's talking to, was it Claude Rains? He's talking to the French policeman. I think that's Claude
Yeah, the
Rains.
Beachy. Yeah,
But anyway,
it's
he's talking to
Captain
him,
Renault.
and yeah. So he smiles because they're sitting there talking outside the bar, and the French Vichy guy and the German soldier walk in, and they're arguing back and forth, in French and German, and they both look at each other, Renault and Rick look at each other, and Rick just kind of smiles and shakes his head. But find me another part other than the flashbacks where he smiles in that movie. He does not smile much. So Roger, we went off on Casablanca. So any thoughts on what Josh should watch, or what's your standby go to?
I was actually I was thinking in my mind, and I was laughing a little bit because I posted something today on our Facebook page that it was like the LeBron James thing with the whole, the guy came in on Twitter and he calls him the biggest liar. And I don't know if y'all watched the one, but I guess this was several years ago. He's like, yeah, LeBron James, man, he's just a killer on the court. And, he's trying to pump himself. He's like, yeah, man, I've been, every pregame I've been watching Godfather Part 2. And I've watched it, every pregame just to get fired up and get in that mindset. And so by this time, there had been like 6 or 7 games. So theoretically, he had watched it 6 or 7 times, right? And this foreign reporter is like, so, and he's like Spanish or whatever the fuck he is, but he's like, so, you watch his movies? Like, yeah, he's one of the greats, Godfather 2 puts me in that mentality that, I'm going out and I'm a killer. And so the guy's like, so, what's your favorite quote? He's like, oh yeah, man. So yeah, that's just great movie. And so he keeps pushing, he keeps pressing, and he's like, yeah, so you watched it so many times. You have to have a favorite quote. What's your favorite? Wow, man, because it's like a 27-hour long movie, and man, it's just good from the beginning. I just kind of like them all, man. There's just, you know what? I'll tell you what. I'll let you pick the quotes. It's like, so LeBron, you've never actually watched The Godfather 1 or 2 or 3, correct? But that, and when they ask him with the later on, he's got a book, and it's about Malcolm X, right? Which we could do a whole daggum episode on Malcolm X and whatever, but he's got the book there, and one of the reporters like, oh, so I noticed you got a book in your hand. He's like, yeah, she's like, so what do you think about the book? Is there anything that's standing out to you right now, that you're learning from it, or whatever? And he's kind of like, well, I read it as a kid, and this, I just started a couple days ago. And then he goes right into, but this is the first time that I've read the whole thing, since a kid, from front to back. It's like, well, wait a minute, you just started a couple days ago because you hadn't read it. And so she's like, so, what out of, what are you getting out of that book? Have you seen anything that's like inspiring or motivational or whatever? He's like, yeah, man, it's just, it's a great book. I mean, Malcolm X was just a great dude. And yeah, man, just front to back, it's just, he's pretty kick ass. So, you sit there, it's like, dude, you have no clue. That's actually what it was running through my head when you said that. But, that when it comes to movies, so I don't watch a lot of movies. I don't watch a lot of TV in general. Never really have. I mean, I've had times here, and like when we're deployed or whatever, right? You whatever's on the iDrive you watch, which some of it may or may not be appropriate. But I've got I did my little list, and this is no like in particular, in any specific order or whatever. But as I started writing them down, because I could think of like 2 or 3. And then as I started going through them, I was like, oh yeah, what about this one? What about this one? What I do notice though is that I don't have anything really new. And the reason I don't have anything new is because most movies today suck. So I have a couple that are probably within about 10 years, and then things that are older than that. But all time, one of my all-time favorites, Shawshank Redemption, right? That's probably on all of our top, all 3 of our top lists. Shawshank Redemption, fantastic. And with these movies here, these are those that when I'm flipping through the guide at night and I see it, I automatically turn to it, right? I mean, even if it's like credits are getting ready to come, I'm watching the end of this bad boy. And then it's going to start over again because you get like Showtime East, and then I'm out here in Arizona, so then you get like Showtime West, so it starts again, 20 minutes or whatever. But Shawshank Redemption, I would throw to my man Dave, Training Day, my man. Right? I love that movie with Denzel Washington, so that's another great one. Full Metal Jacket and Platoon, I throw those up there hand in hand. I've seen those probably a million times and continue to watch those. Here's a little bit of an odd one, Donnie Brasco. Fantastic movie if you haven't seen Donnie Brasco, but that's an oldie that every now and then, man, they play it on like Cinemax or whatever. It'll pop up and they'll play it for like a couple weeks and then it just disappears. for a couple months or a year or whatever. Almost all of the old Clint Eastwood westerns, Unforgiven, Outlaw Josie Wales, High Plains Drifter. I love all those things. Again, I think Summer, she's seen those things. My wife, she's seen those things probably 1,000 times as I watch them. Another oddball here, Talented Mr. Ripley. Fantastic movie if you haven't watched that. And my last one, believe it or not, and this is probably one of the newer ones or the newest ones that I have of all these, the Superman series, like the new Superman series, totally dig them. Totally dig the character, dig the actor. I like what they've done with it. The Zack Snyder one with Justice League, I thought was pretty good. But as far as modern movies and stuff like that, that's probably the most modern I have. But that's my I got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's my probably top 10. And I'm sure as you guys list a couple of them here, I'll kick it over to Josh. There's probably 2 or 3 out there that I've missed that I would add to that. But that's probably my go-to top 10 right now.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, and there's some fantastic movies on there. Shawshank. Most of mine, again, in no particular order, most of mine are, not newish. Obviously Casablanca is one of the ones. I had Outlaw Josie Wales as one, but any Clint Eastwood, westerns, Fistful of Dollars, those were so good. The original True Grit and even the remake of True Grit, man, Josh Brolin, an amazing job in it. So, I'm a big fan of that one too. Gettysburg. I'm a big fan of Gettysburg because I'm a history nerd. And, but anything really, you start talking to Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson in it, I'm a fan. So like the Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape and stuff. I'm a huge fan of those. Jaws, the original Jaws, I thought was fantastic. You've got Roy Schneider, Richard Dreyfuss, Bernard Shaw. I think is probably one of the most underrated actors of all time. You take a look at Bernard and Jaws. I'm sure. So Steven Spielberg, Bernard Shaw was not the original. The original choice to play Quint Jaws was Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin looked at the script and was like, "Nah, man, I'm good. I don't want that." And it was to be Robert Shaw, and that's Bernard Shaw. I don't mean Bernard Shaw. Bernard Shaw was. And God, I'm stupid. I probably had a little too much to drink right now, since I'm drinking for all of us. So, Robert Shaw, one of the most underrated actors of all time. So Richard Dreyfuss was that Richard Dreyfuss did on YouTube, and granted, Robert Shaw, he passed away. I forget what year it was, far before before he should have, and that probably had to do with with some hard prior to that. But if you go back in Jaws 1 where they're on the boat and they're drinking and Robert tells as Quint, he tells the story of the USS Indianapolis and the on Richard Dreyfuss's face, who he Culper, was real. So they had not they tried to rehearse it one time, but Robert Shaw had gotten too drunk to remember his lines and do that portion where they were actually drinking at. He got too drunk, so they had to scrap it. They had to come back to it for another day. So Richard Dreyfuss, when he's looking at it and you see the look on his face, that was the first time he had seen it. And in the interview, he said that was one of the most riveting things he had ever seen in his life was Robert Shaw's, his rendition of, being on the USS Indianapolis when it was sank and the sharks and stuff. And, he talked about it. And some people want to MF that portion of the movie because Robert Shaw is like it went down June 29th 1945. Well, Indianapolis it sank on June 30th not the 29th. And some people want to MF that part, and they're like, oh, well, it's not historically accurate. It's like shut traffic. Go throw yourself in front of a fast moving semi because Robert Shaw is one of the greatest actors of all time, and he left us definitely too early. It's like Luke mentioned earlier, Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger played the best Joker. He was better than Nicholson's. He was faces who the last one, and I can't Johnny Cash and Walk the Line. I can't. Luke, you probably remember
Joe Quinn Phoenix.
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah. He played Joker. I think Heath Ledger, died way before his time. Belushi, way before his time. It was absolutely terrible. I think Joaquin Phoenix is a fantastic actor. I don't think he was better than. I was thinking about that when Luke brought his name up. Those are the movies, man. When like you said, Roger, when I'm flipping through, I'm like that stopping because that's what. I thought we were Luke, man. I don't,
Hang on though. Let me ask you this: you talk about the Heath Ledger being the better Joker. He was better than Jack Nicholson, I think, because of the era. It's a different era. We weren't so dark back then because Nicholson, I think if you take him in his prime, right, in today's world, I mean, he's got that, he's got that attitude, that sarcasm, that chip on his shoulder, a little bit. I mean, he's got that grit, man. I think when you look at where we were as a society back in those days, I say those days, right? Like it was 50 or 60 years ago, but just over the last, 20 years versus where we're at now, I think that's probably a big difference. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Joker.
I'm going to cut in on you. I don't know if you're going to kick that to Josh, and I agree with both. Well, I agree with Josh to a point. Okay. I think that, let me back up with and address what Roger said about the Joker. You go all the way back to the original Batman. Remember the old 70s series Batman with, the Joker in that was goofy and over the top and it was cartoonish because that's what it reflected the time. It was goofy and jokish and stuff like that. The Batman with Michael Keaton and Nicholson came out in 1989, I believe. And those were some crazy times, man. The transition between the 80s and the 90s, it was just kind of over the top. People kind of didn't know how to act before grunge came out. We were wrapping up in the culture, we were wrapping up the hairband phase and moving on to the next thing. And that Joker was just kind of off the wall, So, yeah, and he was perfect for that. And then it was a reflection of the times. Now let's fast forward to Heath Ledger's Joker. There've been a lot of movie theories, fan theories about who he was. Like what was the background of the character? It's like, man, this guy's messed up. He tells different stories about the scars. He knows a lot about explosives. He tells a story to Harvey Dent about 10 soldiers, blow up in a car bomb in the desert and nobody cares. You kill one mayor and everyone goes crazy. So the theory is maybe he was a veteran, who just wanted to see chaos, who had PTSD. He's had enough. That was kind of a reflection of the time when The Dark Knight came out. And you look at Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. And man, it's a reflection of the time. Right. I think his performance. If you put Joaquin Phoenix in the Dark Knight movie, trying to play that Joker, he would not have done as well as Heath Ledger, no doubt in my mind. On the other hand, if you put Heath Ledger in the Joker movie that recently came out, Heath Ledger would knock it out of the park, just like Joaquin Phoenix did. So that's my little Joker thing. I think the Joker kind of has evolved with where culture is at the time, and I think it's really interesting. I'm a movie nerd, man. I'm a movie nerd. Now, it's hard for me to name a top 10 because it's like I like to go with the top 5, but I have to break it down. It's like, what are my top 5 favorite war movies? And I want to break it down even further. What are my top 5 favorite World War II movies? Vietnam movies. So, like I said, his standbys, he sees Shawshank Redemption come by and he's got to go watch it. When I talk about like my favorite movies if I see those on or they're in my DVD sleeve, and I know that now I'm getting old because I still got DVDs, but it's like I see those and they're at the very front, and it's like, well, I can't watch these movies because I don't have the time to sit down and dedicate and watch every single moment. I've got to spend 2.5 hours transfixed because I appreciate the movie so much. So I actually don't watch these movies I'm about to name that much. And you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. And I like these movies each for kind of different reasons, and in no particular order, really. I got The Dark Knight. That's the second Batman movie with Christian Bale. That movie hits a number of chords with me for a lot of different reasons. And sometimes I tend to read too much into movies and kind of superimpose my, how I feel about things and make it about me, of course. Talk about Josh being the egoist. That's me right there. I'll say Casablanca is definitely there. I got to watch the whole thing. Black Hawk Down. Good, Bad, and the Ugly. I just love that movie. I'll sit there and just be transfixed by that movie. It's like almost hypnotic for me. It's just so good. I'm going to put, these movies, I say that they're hallowed ground for me because of the actor. And that's Last of the Mohicans, #1. There Will Be Blood and Gangs of New York. Again, man, because when Daniel Day-Lewis is on the screen, I cannot look away. That dude is amazing, and he's just a nut, man. His personal life is crazy too. I love The Departed. That's one of my standby movies. Like Roger said, if I see The Departed is on, I'm gonna go to it and watch it because it's so funny to me. It's not necessarily like a great movie, but it's good, and there's some CI aspects of that movie. Those of you know what I'm talking about. I love The Royal Tenenbaums. That movie transfixes me with the Wilson brothers and Gene Hackman, and it's got some really good actors. And one of my favorite comedy is a movie I guarantee most of the audience hasn't seen, and it's called Let It Ride, and it has Richard Dreyfuss. Josh, there you go. Roger's finally got something. Slam it back, buddy. But man, it's just a hilarious movie about a dude who goes to the track in Florida and just has a really good day. And Richard Dreyfuss just knocks it out of the park. Now, Josh, with Jaws, I'm going to tell you, man, of the Jaws franchise, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me. A lot of people didn't like Jaws 3D. I just think it was misunderstood. Jaws 3D I think was the best. And of course, I'm joking, but I'm gonna throw out a couple of movie trivia for you, and then I'm gonna I'll do a couple of movie trivia for the audience that you may not know, or maybe you did, and then I'll make another point, and I'll kick it to Josh. But Brokeback Mountain, we were talking about Heath Ledger. I have not seen Brokeback Mountain. I've heard it's a good movie, but I just haven't seen it. I heard that Heath Ledger's really good in it. I've heard the other kid that the brother of the girl that was in The Dark Knight. I'm blanking on his name. He was in the movie Nightcrawler. Anyway, I've heard they're really good in the movie. Did you know, Josh, the writer, the guy who wrote Lonesome Dove, Larry McMurtry, wrote the screenplay for that movie? I bet you didn't know that. Larry McMurtry wrote the screenplay. So, and one more quick movie thing. Roger mentioned Platoon and Full Metal Jacket. I love those movies too. The first half of Full Metal Jacket is outstanding, and over the years, as I've watched the second half more and more, it's grown on me. Right? When I first saw it, I was like, the second half of this movie sucks. It's not as good as the first half, but it's pretty good. But Apocalypse Now, that movie is another one where I watch it and I'm like, wow. I mean, I get transfixed by it. But if you're ever bored on Wikipedia or something like that, look up, or on the internet, look up the problems they had shooting that movie. That movie was insanely hard to shoot for so many reasons. Every single actor was like, I'm ready to quit. And I think a lot of actors did quit. What's his name? The crazy guy, Dennis Hopper, was just like stoned and tripping on LSD the entire time. Almost every scene he's in the movie, he's either stoned, hopped up on coke, or on LSD. And that movie was just a complete disaster, almost as bad as The Island of Dr. Moreau, which, put two and two together. What's the same actor in both those movies? But I'll save my other point for later. maybe if I get to it. But Josh, I'll kick it to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, no. So Apocalypse Now, you're absolutely right. That movie almost did not get finished. So Dennis Hopper was high. Dennis Hopper was what great. Martin Sheen, I think it was either Martin Sheen or Francis Ford Coppola, got malaria during the movie because they shot it in the Philippines, I believe. And yeah, dude, it was malaria, drugs, alcohol. Like it was over budget, over time. It almost did not get finished, and it is probably one of the most prolific movies of our time. I, as far as like war movies go, I didn't even think about war movies. I Platoon is probably one of the best war movies I think probably ever made. Along with Full Metal Jacket. Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket. I used to watch the first half of Full Metal Jacket, and as soon as I graduated basic training, like I turned it off. But that was pre-army for me. After I joined the army and after I had a deployment under my, I finally watched. I watched the rest of it. It was, it resonated. I'll leave it at that. It resonated after that part for sure. But what do you call him? Joaquin Phoenix?
Joaquin. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Phoenix. As a Joker, and it was really, that part was really good, especially in where you get what you, and I won't say the F word here, so we can stay on YouTube without the explicit label.
I already did it. Sorry.
Okay, so I wasn't even paying attention, man. So you fucking deserve. Sorry, Luke's mom. Sorry, my mom. Sorry, Roger's mom.
We'll never make any money off this one.
Right. But you talk about Joaquin Phoenix. You talk about actors. We're talking about. We're talking about Heath Ledger. We're talking about Joaquin. Even Leonardo. I tell you, Leonardo, the Revenant, is one of, and everybody makes, and I get it. When you look at him, his 8-inch biceps and everything. We all make fun of him, but I don't know of a bad movie that Leonardo DiCaprio has made, and The Revenant was, dude, The Revenant was phenomenal. But you talk about Phoenix, and when I think of Joaquin Phoenix, my mind was the Joker. It goes to Joaquin Phoenix and Walk the Line, where he played Johnny Cash, and to think that Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon, they sang the songs of Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash. That's one of that's another favorite movie of mine, because I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan. I've always been a huge Johnny Cash fan. I remember growing up sitting in the front seat of my dad's 77 Ford F-150 pickup truck with the bench seat with that seat cover on it. That was, it shit must have been made out of burlap. It was the most uncomfortable seat cover on there, and the bed was rusted right up against the cab. Like you could see the drive shaft spinning, as you're riding in the back of it going down the highway. But my dad, old school country playing on it. It was Johnny Cash, Fern Guy, Hank Sr. And, when I heard, when I saw Walk the Line, not singing those songs. There's no way they're singing those songs. And then, looked it up and researched it. And Joaquin Phoenix, no shit, he was singing Johnny Cash songs, and he sounded a little bit like Johnny Cash. And Johnny Cash had that freight train, sharp like a knife, gravelly, and it was absolutely amazing. So actors and movies and stuff. I'll get there's a Joker, but Joaquin Phoenix is completely 100% underrated actor. He is absolutely phenomenal. Him and Reese Witherspoon did an absolute job in in Walk the Line and portraying Cash for sure, and June Carter for sure. So I feel like you're not getting to talk that much, so I'm going to throw it over to you. And I don't know if you want to talk about like Wu-Tang Clan.
No, it's all good because what's crazy is when you threw out your outline, it's like, man, how are we going to talk like 2 hours over this? I think we could talk about the Joker for 2 hours. But what's interesting when you brought up Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the movies I didn't list on here that is another one of my go-tos is The Beach. I'm not really sure why. It's for those that haven't seen it, but it's just it's that. Because I do have a little a little bit of that Josh, FTW, mentality. It's just not as, I guess not as prevalent or not as visible. And that movie kind of reminds me that, hey, I'm cutting away from civilization, F the world, I'm doing my thing, whatever. And then even within his own tribe, right, that happens to him. But the big thing I think with it all, when you look at Joaquin Phoenix, Leonardo DiCaprio, and all these other actors, it's those that have not been typecasted. I mean, when you look at Joaquin Phoenix, I'm thinking, what's the movie Maximus? Skips my mind, but Gladiator. Yeah. When you look at him, you look at even like a Tom Cruise, right? Or you look at like Leonardo DiCaprio, The Beach and The Wolf of Wall Street did that. That did it for me with Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, Russell Crowe. He's another one. When you look at these actors and actresses, and you say. You look at the variety. I mean, here's another one. Probably one of my all-time favorite, outside of the Clint Eastwood, Denzel, or Jack Nicholson, like Denzel Washington, right? You look at the types of roles that these characters have played, or that these actors have played, and they're all over the place. And so when you watch, I agree with you. Walk the Line is one of my favorites. Huge Johnny Cash fan. And when you watch him in that movie, it's like you're not just seeing him in that movie. It's like you're remembering all those other roles that he played. And you're like, wow, this guy is like the perfect fit for this character, to play Johnny Cash. And that kind of all rolls up into there. The one thing that I was going to say, so I pulled this up real quick and I'll kick it over to Luke after this. So it's a pretty interesting fact. You were talking about the Jaws movie, which one, I get it, man. Sharks, people love them. I wasn't a big Jaws fan. I'm not a big fan of Shark Week. I'm probably going to hell for it. I know Discovery Channel, I think, is getting ready to start their new Shark Week or whatever. Just never really got into them. But it's funny when you go back and you look at specifically actors and actresses that were not the first choice. So I've got a top 10 here that I just gurgled. So Wolverine, right? Hugh Jackman. Dougray Scott was supposed to be casted as the Wolverine. And when you look at them both, I mean, one, they very similar looking, but he looks a little pasty and a little frail. So I think they did well with Hugh Jackman. But Ryan Gosling in The Lovely Bones, he was supposed to be the lead. Nicole Kidman in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They obviously went with Angelina Jolie. Fantastic choice, right? But it's supposed to be Nicole Kidman. And you can go and Google and find out what the what the reasoning is that they didn't play or whatever. Leonardo DiCaprio in American Psycho. So he was supposed to be the lead there in American Psycho. And I think Bateman, or what's his face, fantastic job. Christian Bale did a fantastic, that's actually another one that I'd add to my list. That's a fantastic movie, American Psycho. So if you haven't seen it, check this one out. Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones.
Oh, no.
I don't see that. I mean, I think they did well with obviously with their selection, but that's a little tough for me. Bette Midler and Sister Act, I don't care about her anyway. Eric Stoltz and John Lithgow in Back to the Future to take over Keaton's place. Hold on. Let's see. Melinda Clark in Scream. Oh, I don't really care. I think anybody could have played that. That's stupid. What's this other one here? Yeah. So that's about 6 or 7 of them that you kind of look, and there's some pretty key movies in there, man. You're like, wow, that could have totally changed and may have even, when you look at the replacement actors and actresses, probably defined the success of the movie itself. So it's, I totally agree with you on the Leonardo DiCaprio. Totally agree with you in the Joaquin Phoenix. It's dude, we could do like a whole episode on like movie reviews.
Dude, it's Denzel, man. And so Denzel, I in another one, you one of y'all brought up Training Day, and I can't remember because I probably had too much drink. But Denzel and Training Day, but I tell you, dude, Denzel, an American Gangster, and Man on Fire. Dude, hands down, Denzel, he's probably Denzel, probably one of the best actors of our time.
Yeah. Yeah, he's what makes me mad about Denzel, and he's a good guy too. That's another thing. We could get into, I'll go off the politics rail. It's just we've all said it before, all these articles come out, about politics and stuff, and it's like, what does Jennifer Aniston think about this? Or Jennifer Aniston said this policy is bad. And it's like, I don't give an F what a Hollywood star says about anything. Shut up, do your job. And I've gotten better at that. I used to be like kind of cancel culture a few years ago. I was like, oh, he said that, I'm never watching his movies again. It's like, I don't care what he says. Act. You're an actor. Act, MFer, just act. Yeah, but Denzel, I was going to get back to him. He's a good guy in real life. There's a lot of stories about stuff he's said and done that he seems like just a good dude. Now, his son played in the latest Christopher Nolan movie. And I'm blanking on the name. It's so bad because I love the movie. I'll think of it in a second. But apparently him and his son are a little bit estranged. They're not big fan. His son's not a big fan of his dad. I read that somewhere. And I cannot believe it's killing me. I can even think of Christopher Nolan's film company. It's called Syncope, but I can't remember the name of the film. It's so bad. So, but back to Denzel. And believe me, I know I'm roundabout here, but I'm still not drinking. It should be Josh, the one that's all roundabout. But Denzel and Roger, we can't see you. I don't know if that's just my computer, but Denzel won the Academy Award for Training Day, which he was great in Training Day, but he really was. But he should have won it for any number of movies he did before that. He was good in Malcolm X. I thought he was really good. I think he should have probably won the Academy Award for that. But so that's Denzel. I was going to say something about The Notebook with Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. A little bit of trivia there. Those two, I know all the ladies out there love that movie. It's one of Michelle's favorites. I can hardly sit through it though. But the interesting piece of trivia on this one is those two hated each other in that movie.
Yeah.
Just could not stand each other. And yeah, as far as actors, I'll hit too. I'll go back to DiCaprio, and I was one of the ones like, oh, Leo, Titanic, whatever. But man, he's got a decent range. He's not the same actor in every movie, although he does kind of have that Leo thing. But one of his first movies, A Basketball Diaries, holy cow! You seen that one, Josh? You seen Basketball Diaries?
Yeah.
That's a rough one, man. That's a rough one to watch. And he did that at a young age. And Robert Pattinson, and it's killing me about this Christopher Nolan movie. God. What? And the audience is just laughing at me, and they're yelling at their headphones, or they're if they're listening to it in the car, telling me the name of the movie. Idiot. Look it up real quick, Josh. Anyway, Robert Pattinson in that movie, really, he's come a long way since Twilight. That's all I'm going to say. I think there's a lot of good stuff about that kid. He's going to play the next Batman. There's going to be another version of Batman, and apparently this one's going to be a little bit different, and people are pumping it up.
Yeah.
So I got one more. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna mention James Gandolfini. I mean, that guy, he's known for Tony Soprano, and apparently, if you watched him, he was in a movie with Robert Redford called The Last Castle, where he played a general who was in charge of and he is like, whoa, that's Tony Soprano. And apparently, you talk to the actors in The Sopranos, and they say that guy is not Tony Soprano at all. He just plays that part.
Wasn't that pre-Sopranos? The Castle? The
Last Castle? No, it is in the middle of The Sopranos.
Was it?
It's while he was still filming. And they say he's a nice guy. He doesn't have the accent or anything. He could act. He could do theater. And he almost quit The Sopranos because he didn't like all the violence that his character was doing. And it's too bad he went, that was his own fault, but he overdosed. We lose some of these great actors real early. I think that, what's his name that's in The Notebook? you know, told you guys I'm blanking on names today. Ryan Gosling. I think he could be. He's good, but I think his ego. I think he's very egotistical. I think he knows how. I don't know.
Man, you go back and so growing up, obviously growing up, we have the Duke, we have Clint Eastwood, and folks like Steve McQueen and Charles Bronson. So I remember, hey Luke, you remember and the kids like
Yeah.
Charles Bronson? It's like, you know what? Go ahead and get out of the car. I'm going to leave you at the gas station, and you can figure out your way back. It's just you think about, and not that I put Leonardo in that. Again, the first time I ever heard, it's a Titanic, right? And so, like, who is this guy? He like the the Backstreet Boys. But you turn around and you look at the movies Leonardo did, Titanic, Wolf of Wall Street, Romeo and Juliet, The Great Gatsby, and What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Catch Me If You Can, and Django Unchained. And you're like, this guy's legit. He's not a type. He's a guy who he's not the joke who you just cast in every gangster film, and I love, but DiCaprio, he's got a. He should have won an Academy Award and an Oscar, long before he did. But you start talking about today's actors. Who is today Eastwood? Who is today's Marlon Brando? Who is today's James Caan? I don't know. I don't know who those folks are because I don't know. I don't see it. There for a while I thought it was Heath Ledger. I was like, Heath Ledger, he's gonna be the he's gonna be the Russell Crowe, he's gonna be the Denzel, he's gonna be the Eastwood, because he was great in The Patriot, he was great as the Joker. Heath Ledger's dead, from a overdose. And I don't know who the next Duke is. I don't know who the next Bronson is. I don't know who the next James Dean is. And dude, you know how old Clint Eastwood is? He's 91 years old.
Wow.
That makes me feel old as shit, right? When you think about Clint Eastwood is 91 years old. It's going to be a sad day when Clint Eastwood, when Gunny Highway, and Josie Wales,
Rowdy Yates,
moves on, bro. Yeah, I don't know, Roger. Who is the next? Who is the next truly great actor to come out of Hollywood?
Probably nobody. Well, with the name that you mentioned too, it was the man's man. Because you got to remember, it goes back to what we were talking about with the Joker. It's a reflection of our society and culture at the time. And so when you look at those movies that we grew up with and a lot of our audience, it was like, hey, teach you how to be a man, right? And so those are the characters that were portrayed in those movies. What's funny is, as you were saying that, and I don't remember a lot of the specifics, but they were talking about the next Captain America might be gay, right? Talking about, even the James Bond, might be gay, that type of stuff. So it's like, which I don't care. I mean, I could really care less what they do. I'll either watch the movie or not, or whatever it is. But, it's a reflection of where you're at in society and culture. And right now, at least for the next couple of years, because everybody's so woke, I don't know if anybody in Hollywood's willing to play that cast. Because, like, look, the years of Sylvester Stallone and because they kind of made a joke about it, right? Him and Arnold Schwarzenegger, would they come out with the a couple of those movies where the 80s action figure, big muscles, and I'm just a man and I beat shit up and whatever. I mean, those days are gone, right? So I don't know if my guess would be, and this is like a macro view, but it's there's probably a shift here over the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years, maybe. As far as the type of actors and actresses that you get. I mean, hell, dude, it's like now, and I'm like Luke. I mean, I haven't gone beyond it. I can't get past it because some of these players and actors and actresses say things. I'm like, yep, I just refuse to watch your stuff. But there are so many people now out here with all these different pronouns, and I'm this and I'm that, and I can't do whatever. And it's just like, fuck, man, can't you just act? Just act. I just want to watch the movie. That's all I want to do. I just want to watch the movie. And that's it. And I think that's also what, when we talk about actors and actresses that we're drawn to, that's also one of those, like, I don't want a lot of, outside interference. I don't care about your political views. Just act, just sing, just play basketball. Laura Ingraham caught a lot of shit when she was like, telling LeBron James, shut up and dribble. Of course, now you look at it, now everybody's like, hey, dude, if you could just like kind of shut up and dribble, that would be great. Because they even the left now is starting to eat their own, where I saw an article the other day, and again, I didn't read into it too much because I pretty much just washed off sports altogether. But they were like, hey, LeBron James is actually worse for the sport than what Colin Kaepernick is. These are current players saying this. They're saying LeBron James is, and I didn't watch any of the games. I didn't watch any of the NBA playoffs. My son did, because he just doesn't care a whole lot about politics. It's not a big deal. I mean, he does what he wants. But even with LeBron James, watching where he lost the first game, or the game 3 or whatever it was, and he left the game 5 minutes early. Right. So when we talk about the whole, LeBron James versus Michael Jordan comparison, which there is no comparison. I don't care who you are. I mean, we can go stat for stat and down the line or whatever. But anyway, when you look at, you're talking about your all-star player, arguably the best player in the league, which I take nothing away from his athleticism. You left the bench and headed back to the locker room 5 minutes early while your team was getting blown up by 40 some odd points. And then to sit here and turn around and hear the coach say, because of course they go to the coach and they're like, well, hey, what about this? Like, oh, well, he does have a tweaked ankle or whatever. He was, we had to go start his rehab. Okay, so I understand the tweaked ankle and this and that. So the 5 minutes was that critical in his rehab that he had to leave early. And then, games, was it game 7 or whatever it was, when the Lakers were knocked out, which pisses me off because I grew up as a huge Lakers fan. I cannot stand LeBron James, so I can't root for the Lakers. I can't do it while he's there. But, game 7, when they ended up losing, him and the team walked off the court, didn't shake hands. Hey, good game, good luck, whatever, they just walked off. And you talk about poor sportsmanship. I get being competitive, totally understand that. And I totally understand the win at all costs. But it's piss poor sportsmanship. And you take that on top of, okay, not just that piece, but you take that along with his off-court actions. That's why I dislike LeBron James. You go out there and you defend China. John Cena did it, right? Because he's got a movie that's coming out where he called, what was it, Taiwan or whatever, a great country. And of course, China's like, hey, dude, so you're trying to film your next movie over here, so your ass is going to recant, or you're not filming over here. So then he came back, oh, man, I'm sorry for calling them a country and this and that. And that just shows you how, and I think Josh has said this several episodes ago. He doesn't remember because he's drunk now, but where that the political side, geopolitical side, has started to play a real role and impact, and not just our sports, but our movies, our culture, everything. Luke was talking about, different superheroes and this and that. You start to see more of the Asian flavor to it and this and that. That's all part of an information, campaign, right? So, I think with the, I guess we're moving here from movies to sports. Man, I just haven't watched anything. You know what? Sadly, so I grew up off of professional wrestling, and I say professional wrestling, I mean like old school WWF, WCW, NWA, that type of stuff. National Wrestling Alliance, not the musical group, but because I grew up in the South, and that's what we did. Like every 2 weeks, they would come to the Richmond Coliseum, and my dad would take me, and that's what we did. We watched Ric Flair and Blackjack Mulligan and all these guys and gals or whatever, and it's it's weird because you see so much more of the athlete nowadays than what you did back in the day. Back in the day, whatever you saw the athlete on the court, that's what you knew of the athlete. That was it. Even going back to the Jordan, Larry Bird days, right? That's what you knew of the athlete. And back then, Ric Flair, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Space Mountain and limousines and jet flying, all that stuff. that's what you knew of Ric Flair. And, I guess one of the downsides of too much information nowadays is you start to see that personal side of them. They all have personal Instagram accounts, they all have personal Twitter accounts. And so you're not only seeing the character that they play, or the athlete or whatever, but you're also seeing that personal side of them. So there's a lot that's changed. And I don't know if it's good or bad or whatever. The sports thing, I don't know. I try, but man, I tell you, and it goes back, we've talked about this in several episodes. I cannot get over the kneeling during the national anthem. I can't get over it. Can't do it. I can't do it when you're not truly a private organization. Now, if you were truly a private organization with no antitrust protections, no monopoly protections, no, tax write-offs, no, charitable organizations, that if you were truly a private organization, you receive none of those subsidies, do what you want. Okay, you're your own organization. Do what you want. You want to let your people kneel, stand, do cartwheels. I don't care. Our tax dollars go to these organizations and these sports organizations. And when my tax dollars go to it, that is your job. I have a problem with them taking a knee, and I'll leave it at this. I know this. If I took a knee at my job during work hours, I get fired. So I don't know. What about you, Luke? They allow that in the embassy? Totally went off the rails.
Well, I know that the State Department. Yeah, I'll get us back on track. But I know that the State Department was authorized to fly the Black Lives Matter flags at embassies. I know that they did it in Athens. I know they did it in Spain, Bosnia. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe they would be okay with taking a knee, State Department, but which is who I don't work for. But anyway. So yeah, Roger, I could dovetail off a lot of things right there. I haven't been as into sports. I don't think I've really watched a single professional sport in a long time. I think I watched the Super Bowl. I did watch the Super Bowl because I was interested. I liked, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I respect Tom Brady. I really like Pat Mahomes. So I was interested to see who would win that. And sports is just, it used to go, like Roger was a Lakers fan back in the day, and that's cool. Players tended to stay on teams back then, and
yes,
they didn't really switch around a lot. And professional football, back when I was following it pretty close, and I think fantasy football is part of what made me like this. I stopped being a fan of teams and started being a fan of players. So I would follow players around. Well, who and that's, one of the reasons, it's like Josh calls me a traitor for being a Patriots guy, but the Patriots had Wes Welker, man, one of my favorite football players of all time, Texas Tech wide receiver. They had Danny Amendola, another Texas Tech receiver. So I was like, man, Patriots, all right, because they had a lot of players I liked. But that makes it less enjoyable. To me, it just made it less enjoyable. Roger was a fan of the Lakers. I was a fan of the Celtics, man. I mean, it was all about the Celtics for me. And it's like I hated the Lakers, right? But I really hated the Detroit Pistons. I really hated the Pistons. It made me so mad that the Celtics were playing in the East and they were going, 5-7 games in every single series, just knockdown, drag out with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Detroit Pistons and these 70, I mean, just head to head, man. Knicks, I mean, just really rough games. And the Lakers would sweep all the way through with no injuries, and the Celtics would come in limping. James Worthy and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson would just do numbers on him, man. And it just made me AC green. So I knew all the Lakers players. I knew all the Celtics players. I knew all the Pistons players. And I still, I think I did it, a couple months ago. I went back and I have a DVD set of the Celtics 1986 season, I think. And it has every single playoff game that they played on this DVD set. And I'll sit down and watch that. And, I really enjoyed that Michael Jordan series, The Last Dance. Really enjoyed that. And I realize the game now is more athletic. It's definitely more athletic, and it is physical, but physical more in an athletic way. These guys, but it's not as rough. It's just not as rough anymore. It was rough back then, and those guys were animals, dirty players. You take LeBron James, and he just, with his current attitude, take him back in a time machine with his current attitude and his current mental toughness, and land him in 1985 or
You'd never
84
make it.
up to 88. He would be a bust because he'd be injured all the time, and he would not be aggressive because Bill Lambier would take him to the floor, and just really smack him down. So yeah, it's sad to see. I don't know that sports is gonna. I just don't. I don't know how it's gonna turn the corner. I'm just not. I don't see it. I kind of wish I was a baseball fan. I just don't like baseball, man. I just, I respect it, but I'm just not a fan. Part of that's because all you guys know I was not good at baseball growing up. So it's professional wrestling. Go to Josh. I want to hear Roger's answer on this now or later. I've never been. I follow professional wrestling, and I think it's fun. I don't hate on it. I know it's not real, but let me tell you what is
Shut your
real.
mouth.
Well, I'll tell you what is real.
Fuck you talking
Their athletic ability is unbelievable. I mean, these guys are truly something else, and they are hard on their bodies, and it's a dark world. I mean, at least it used to be, especially in the 80s. If you saw, touch on the movies, the movie The Wrestler with Mickey,
Great one.
Mickey
Rourke.
unbelievable. Yeah, Mickey Rourke. That movie, like, dude, that's how it was. Now I think it's more of a business, but you still have those small wrestling leagues or whatever they call them, organizations, that it still is pretty rough. You go down and look at, I did this on Wikipedia not long ago, on deaths of wrestlers, before their time. Holy cow.
Yeah.
It's like pages and pages and pages. It's rough, man. So yeah, professional wrestling. But here's what I want to hear from you, now or later, whatever you want. It's like, who's your favorite, man? I mean, it's hard for me. I mean, I dug the Ultimate Warrior. I think the Ultimate Warrior was awesome. I dig Andre the Giant. And I liked Hulk Hogan, whatever. But I really, if I had to, my life depended on it, I'd say the Ultimate Warrior. And you got to give props to Hulk Hogan, because he really blasted wrestling off him by being in the movie Rocky 3. And they, whatever organization he was with, really capitalized on that and blasted into the stellar sphere. So anyway, Josh, were you a professional wrestling fan, or did you follow it at all? Do you know about the Von Erichs and all that?
Dude, the Von Erichs.
Old school.
Yes, man. The Von Erichs, the Road, like everybody, man. Dude, when I was a kid,
let me cut you off. Let me cut you off real quick, dude. Von Erichs. I know Von Erichs. Kerry Von Erich had a foot amputated and wrestled with a fake foot laced up in a boot for like a year because he didn't want anybody to know he was missing a foot. And if you go back and watch some of those matches, you'd never know. Unbelievable. Sorry, Josh. I just had to say that. That dude was
no. So if you go back of the Von Erichs, which was Fritz, right? So, Fritz Von Erich, WWC, WWF, I was a huge fan of wrestling growing up. I knew it was a kid, but dude, how can
Okay, first of all, you guys stop saying that the shit ain't real, all right?
We're making Roger's like, what? Real. And so you make it, man. I was straight Hulkamania. You got the Ultimate Warrior out there. You got Sergeant Slaughter. You got Andre the Giant. I mean, dude, it was just wrestling was awesome. Like it was fantastic. You got the Iron Sheik out there, and it had progressed. And I tell you what, though, one of my all-time favorite wrestlers was probably Mankind. And you're talking about
Mick Foley. Yep.
Dude, that guy is a machine. All of them are machines. All of them are, you
remember when he was thrown off that cage by the Undertaker? Dude, if you guys and gals, okay, for those that, and I get it, it's more choreographed. Kayfabe is over those days. But for those that think, oh, it's all fake shit, Go gurgle on YouTube where Mankind, I think it's WrestleMania, right? Where he's thrown off the top of that steel cage by the Undertaker. And
Yes,
dude, and then go gurgle like some of the interviews later. You know, he's like,
dude.
"Hey man, I thought you were going to throw me off the cage." He's like, "I did throw you off the cage. You fell 30
Yes.
fucking feet."
So it's on Netflix or Hulu, one of the two. But it's a Mick Foley documentary, and Mick Foley comes on, he talks about his time and the WWF and everything, and people are like, "Oh, that's fake." It's like, talk to him about how many times he got hit in the head with a steel chair, like a no shit steel chair, and then tell me, "Oh, that's fake." Okay, let me hit you in the head with a steel chair, and then you tell me like, "Oh, that shit hurt is fake." Mick Foley, like, I mean, he injury. I mean, that dude's legit. But you look at him and the barbed wire matches and everything like that. Dude, Mick Foley, and I think it might have been against the Undertaker or Chris Jericho. One of the two was like the retirement match. It's like, okay, whoever loses has a retire wrestling forever. But dude, I was of wrestling. I was a Hulkamania for years. And I love me some Hulkster. And then, you have this and all that stuff.
He's still wrestling. Sting is still wrestling.
Yeah, I saw that. And I don't watch wrestling a whole lot nowadays because it's got the Rocks and the John Cena. Again, you already mentioned John Cena. John Cena, a supporter, apologist, piece of shit. So he's done in my book, and even in his movie with Mark Wahlberg, I forget what it was, like whatever. So he's done. But dude, wrestling, and then they came out with the cartoon, WWF cartoon.
Yeah,
I was a kid. Yeah, man. You got Sergeant Slaughter, and then you got God, I forget his name. You got Sergeant Slaughter, you got the Iron Sheik, and you got dude, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Coming out, smacking people in the face. It was fantastic. I loved it, man. I absolutely loved it. To go back to the old school, like Luke's talking like the Von Erichs, and then it was really before the WWE, but you got like Dusty Rhodes, and you've got the Four Horsemen, Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, and it just, man, it was so good, and so many of them just burn out long before their time. When you're talking about the Four Horsemen, you're talking about like Chris Benoit and Randy the Macho Man Savage. Who didn't like Randy the Macho Man Savage? And Miss Elizabeth. When I was a kid, probably one of my first crushes, like first like two, probably top 2 or 3 crushes, Miss Elizabeth, with Randy the Macho Man. It was like, oh, man, it just, and it was so good. There was so many great.
That stuff's coming back. Like if you look at, and I still watch this stuff and take my boy every now and then when it comes in town. But so AEW, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's a Saudi guy, I think. So he started AEW, and it's like All Elite Wrestling or whatever. So Dusty Rhodes' son, Cody Rhodes, is like one of the executives. He's also a wrestler, and they are bringing back like 1980s era wrestling. So they're trying to get rid of a lot of the not that son, not Stardust, not what was his name? Not the other boy, not the bigger boy, but Cody Rhodes, or Dustin Rhodes. Dustin Rhodes was Stardust. But so they've actually taken like John Moxley, who was with WWE. They were actually taking a lot of the WWE superstars, and they brought in Tony Schiavone and a lot of these old WCW guys. And they're trying to take it back to that mid 80s, early 90s, before it became, I guess before you started seeing the personal side of their lives. They want it to be a show, right? And they want it to be wrestling, so it's less about all the dramatics, and it's not a soap opera as much as it is. You should, like Luke mentioned. I mean, you look at the athleticism of these guys and gals that are in there today. It is incredible. I mean, it's truly incredible. And so I think they are trying to focus on more of that than they are nowadays. Where WWE, like I record it, I probably watch 20 minutes of it because I fast forward through most of it, and it's between the fireworks and the little skits here and there, it's like, hey, actual wrestling, right? You get like 20 minutes of it, and then those that are good at wrestling, you get even less than that. So, and like Josh, I mean, I grew up a big time Road Warriors fan. That was like my big time tag team. Always grew up as a Ric Flair guy. It was he was the guy that really revolutionized wrestling, and then took it to the Stone Cold Steve Austin era. And then when Stone Cold Steve Austin, who used to be a WCW guy, and he was like fired, right? Because he used to be stunning Steve Austin. He kind of like Josh, he used to have hair, and then now he doesn't anymore. But and me, flowing golden locks or whatever. And he came to Vince McMahon and was like, "Hey man, just let me throw in some black boots and some black trunks. Let me go out there and kick some ass and drink some beer." And they were like, "All right." But again, you talk about those actors that resonate with that era. It's the same thing with the athletes. Like when you look at Stone Cold Steve Austin in the Attitude Era, which was the golden era of professional wrestling, it was just the right wrestler with the right attitude at the right time that synced up with where we were as a culture. Giving everybody the middle finger, fuck the man. I'm drinking beer, and that was just, it all meshed very well. And it seems like I don't know, in my opinion, not just with wrestling, but you look at wrestling, sports, movies, everything. For, I guess, lack of a better phrase for it, it's almost like they're still searching for an identity. It's like, what are we meshing with here? What are we syncing with here? And it's I'm not trying to turn all the fun into back into politics and culture, but you do see that struggle. And it's I find myself nowadays watching more and more YouTube with older matches, older sporting events, older things. I'm like, and at first, years ago, I was like, man, who the hell wants to watch this? But now I see, because I relate to it, right? I relate to that time period. I relate to what was going on in my life. That's why, we were going to talk about music, right? We're not even getting to music. We don't have enough time for it. But, they say, music, you have such an attachment to it because it's forever linked with whatever was going on in your life at the time, whether it was, kissing your first girlfriend or first date or prom or whatever it was. But I don't know, Luke. I mean, what do you think? I get this feeling, having a good shot of bourbon here, that it seems like they're searching for some identity, right? It's like, what are you really relating to? And maybe it's not. I don't think it's the industry is fueling that fire partially, but it's like society itself. I mean, you're even starting to get pushback from the left now on pronouns and he, she, they, them. You're not they enough, or you're not them enough, or we're we enough, and it's like, I don't even know we've as a society determined kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, that's why everything sucks right now, man. You're right. I mean, I don't know. Are they searching for an identity, or are they just trying not to make the customer base angry? Both. And pro wrestling, I mean, dude, it goes everything. Dude, just go back to your roots, man. Don't try to be something you're not. It's supposed to be, portraying, some crazy violence with muscles and all that stuff. I mean, it's just go back to your roots. That's why movies suck. I mean, movies are just, most of them that are supposed to be the big blockbusters just really aren't that good. I just don't. I don't think they are, and it's watered down and all that stuff. You got to go back to movies like. I think we're going to start seeing more. We've talked about it before, of these smaller budget movies that are kind of going back to what everybody truly enjoys. Like there was a movie called Extraction on Netflix with Chris Hemsworth, Thor. If you haven't seen that movie, dude, it's like, this takes me back to the 80s, because it's like action, fast paced, it was, violent. And it was just a dang good movie, but it was, it wasn't low budget, but it wasn't like a Hollywood blockbuster type thing. It's, straight to Netflix, but man, it was good. And because it just went back to the basics, it's not trying to make a statement, it's trying to entertain people, man. Just get back to that, I don't know, I like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Shout out to Ryan on that one if he's still with us. I guarantee Ryan's still with us because he's a big pro wrestling fan, and he's big on Stone Cold. We used to, he'd get the pay-per-views at Fort Huachuca. We'd all go to his room and watch. Those are some good times. I love Stone Cold. It's too bad that guy doesn't have a podcast because, don't say he does, because we don't want people going over
He
and
does.
listening to that. Don't say that, because now they're going to turn this off and go listen. No, he does.
It's actually a pretty good podcast.
It's very good, and I like Steve Austin. You know, I liked the Goldberg thing. You know, I thought that was pretty cool, and you know, those gosh, we kind of thought this might be a short episode. You know, what are we gonna say? But this ties into culture and everything. But you know, Bautista, you know, he made the transition over to movies, and you know, he's no John Cena. I'll tell you that. Politically, I'm sure, whatever, but really good in the Blade Runner movie. I thought of course, he's good as Drax in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Is hilarious, you know, so dry, doesn't take himself too seriously. And there's a new movie called like Army of the Dead or something. That's another straight to Netflix, you know, zombie movie. I thought he was pretty good in that, you know, and that's a wrestler that made the transition. He did a pretty good job. You know, Steve Austin obviously can do more than just wrestling. I'm sure there's some others, but yeah, man. I mean, I did not know we'd be talking about pro wrestling, but it sounds like the three of us, we could probably do a whole episode on pro wrestling.
People joke about it and people make fun of it, but there is a reason why WWE IPO'd several years ago and Vince McMahon is a billionaire because of that many, right? It's like, oh, I'm so offended. Hey, look here, motherfucker. 50 Shades of Grey sold like 50 million copies. So don't tell me about you being offended. You know?
Yeah, exactly. You know, but you go back and you look at it, you're right. And so, you and Luke made great. It's a product of our time because back in the 80s, white and blue, it was hacks before in the American flag, and it was against Nikita Koloff, right? Who came out waving the the Soviet Union, hammer and sickle, and it came out, the Iron come out waving out. It was like, yeah, man, you knew exactly, without question, you knew who the enemy was. There was no question about it. And Americans, by and large, 1986, right, the Miracle on Ice. A hockey fan growing up. I grew up in North Florida. We didn't have hockey, right? Hockey wasn't a thing when I grew up. When the United States beat in hockey, it was the greatest thing ever. You beat the Big Red Horde. You beat the amazing. It was like the Red Dawn, not the shitty remake of Red Dawn, right? The original Red Dawn with Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey and Powers Booth. Everything. It was amazing. And you don't, and you don't have. Now then you went into the Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin 316 because Stone Cold said so, and I remember Ryan. Ryan's an absolutely huge Steve Austin fan. And it was fantastic. It's you don't have that these days, and a lot of that, and I hate to, we're pull politics back in it, but you don't have that. You don't have that these days. There's no defined enemy because, we know who the enemies are. The three of us know who the enemies are, and the majority of our listeners who the enemies are, but it's not politically correct to say that Putin and Xi Jinping are the enemy. People are like, oh, well, we don't want to offend anybody, but that's just, man, and back in the 80s wrestling, it was pretty clear, and they didn't make no bones about it. And, you have the Ric Flairs, and I love Ric Flair, and I know Hulk Hogan's and Ric Flair's daughters are into wrestling, and they're starting to come out in professional wrestling and stuff. And Ric Flair was like, if you want to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And it was just, man, it was fantastic. It was it was a great time to, man, it was such a great time to be a kid. And
I was skinnier, I was in shape, I had a full head of hair. Shit, dude. Life was good, man.
Life was amazing for
now I'm the old broken down hacksaw Jim Duggan, fucking warped 2x4, tattered American flag, chest surgeries. I'm missing like half my, pectoralis minor, and my pectoralis major has always been too small anyway. So yeah, it's times are tough, man. Times are tough.
Is that what it's called, a pectoralis major? I thought it was another word.
I don't know. I may have just made
anatomy.
that up. I may have just made that up.
I didn't frame that
Look,
joke.
we're like an hour and 50 minutes. Let's be real. Nobody's listening to us right now. So
so I'll make a prediction. Not a prediction. I'll make what I consider an observation that could wake some people up, and it's about the Olympics that are going to take place in Tokyo. I believe that China is actually going to beat us in the medal count. And I think that could be, it's not going to change anything, but I think it could be kind of a wake-up call.
Didn't they beat us before the medal count when it was held in Beijing?
They'll beat us really bad this time. And I think there's going to be a lot of surprises. I think they're going to they will have come a long way in track and field, believe it or not. I think that, man, if you don't see it now after the Olympics, if I'm right, I mean, it's like this, we got to change course on something, or it's not, America's not going to be long for this century, So yeah, but I don't know. I think a couple people are still listening. If Ryan made it to the professional wrestling, I guarantee you he's still listening. Then
we can do a whole episode on WWE.
I really hope people will go to the give us some feedback on this. Tell us your favorite basketball teams, your favorite professional wrestler. What you think about sports nowadays, and favorite movies, favorite actors, all that stuff. Tell us if you think we're off base, or you think you've got a better actor than we do. And I guarantee you, a lot of people are going to be posting like, "Oh, well, this is my favorite movie," and the three of us are going to be like, "Oh, I forgot about that one."
Yeah,
it always happens. Yeah, Josh has had a good time, that's for sure. Happy birthday to Josh, man. You deserve it. Have a good time. I didn't realize your birthday was coming up, man. So all you identity thieves out there, remember, Josh said when his birthday is, his first name. So I'm sure, yeah, his favorite wrestlers. So those passwords, Hulkamaniac 98 or something like that.
Prayers, vitamins, and whatever the hell else.
It's so. I always made fun of, and nobody ever really picked up on it. So I share a birthday one with Donald Trump.
Winning.
June 14th. I share a birthday. The United States Army. Some people, and I share a birthday, and so June day. And I celebrate the same birthday. Some people to join the United States Army. So I look at it as a blessing. As far as that goes, hey man, birthday to the United States Army. You're there for sure. But as far as I go, and the last go around. Ryan, I hope you're still listening right now. I'll throw out Steve Austin because I know he's one of your and that's that. So I'll kick it over to Roger and Luke. We'll close this.
All right, a couple minutes left. We did a pretty good job of keeping politics out of this. I mean, I think we did philosophize a little bit about wrestling and culture and tying all that stuff in. But a couple things, man. You know what? If you haven't watched that Kamala Harris interview with Lester Holt, well, I haven't been to Europe either, dude. That she is actually getting beat up by the White House, where the White House is like, "What the fuck are you thinking? Like, what does that have to do with?" It's like. And if you've watched the following interview with the Spanish reporter, that's like, so when are you going? And, especially when you look at English being a second language, a lot of times, they're very direct because it's textbook translations and interpretations. So when are you going? She's like, wait, I'm not finished. It's like, well, you know what? You guys have been in office since like January 20th, and we're now into June. So, and not enough time to go into it. Hey, I don't know why you just wouldn't have gone to the border and squashed all this. You got the ban lifted on TikTok and WeChat. Don't use it. More to follow on that on the next episode. And I wanted to cover this, but I guess we get into it. UFOs, CPI inflation up 5%. And Biden will be at the G7 summit with, pushing the global minimum tax rate. So, Luke, why don't you go ahead and close us out with your final thought in the last minute?
Yeah, all these things Roger just mentioned, we have limited time, so that's one of the reasons we're doing the website so that you all can read the same stories we're reading, and we're really looking forward to it. Yeah, I mean we've only got about a minute left. We appreciate everyone listening. I'll throw this out, breaking news that the Supreme Leader of Korea, Roger's ready to go to war because he said that K-pop is the devil. So Roger is, he and his BTS, man, they took that personally. So, hey, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to Carlton Zeus once again. He's my favorite musician too. So, politics is definitely from culture. So, until next time, keep your canteen cups full and tightly secured.